Hello,
what's up?
everybody.
We're back with another reaction.
Yes, and apparently this is Lauren's channel today.
Yes,
it's
I'm Lauren. This is my channel.
She never gets to
April Fools.
That was 5 days ago. She apparently never gets to be in the spotlight, if you know what I mean. So it's her chance to.
It's my chance to be in the spotlight.
Yes, I'm sorry about the British accents.
It's not about a British accent.
We've been watching lots of Bridgerton lately, if you know what I mean. So, anyways, yeah. So we're reacting to. Why you look at me like that?
Okay.
MrBallen today.
MrBallen video. What's the name?
I think it's called. Let me check. So
in 2014.
Okay. We are reacting to Inside a Nigerian Death Factory.
Mature audiences only, if you know
Yes.
what I mean. God, why do I keep saying that?
Mature audiences.
Yeah. So if you're not
So
mature
you should probably
enough-
leave.
Yeah, I know. I'm always too immature for this stuff. My bad. I haven't. I'm really excited to watch MrBallen today because I know Lauren hasn't been back here in a couple weeks. It's been a long time. You know what I mean? So.
Has it really been a couple of weeks?
Yeah, because you didn't react to his previous video. I think that one I actually reacted to that one myself. So you weren't there for that one. So it's definitely been a couple weeks.
Man.
I'm so sorry. She was out of town. She's back here with MrBallen once again. We all know we love MrBallen because he tells the best shocking stories, and they're
Also,
all true.
check out his podcast. It's really great. I listened to it all the way to Springfield, practically.
Oh yeah, here on your trip out, of course.
Yep.
So, anyways, we are excited to react to this Nigerian Death Factory, whatever that means.
I mean, we're not exactly excited about the content.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I know we seem happy on the surface.
We're gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry with our.
I'm sure it's gonna be
excitement.
very devastating.
Oh yeah,
and
it's gonna be
not
very
a good
dark.
Story.
Yeah, but you know what? We're gonna just give you our thoughts throughout the video. So let's get on in. All right. Okay.
In 2014, a group of young men discovered an abandoned-looking warehouse surrounded by barbed wire in the middle of a Nigerian forest. Today's story is about the absolute horror they found inside of that building. Today's episode is going to be extremely upsetting, extremely graphic.
Oh, that's great.
As such, viewer discretion is advised. But before we get into today's story,
Not really.
if you're a fan of
As
the
always.
strange, dark, and
I'm always
mysterious
shocked by
delivered in
something.
story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once or twice every week. So, if that's of interest to you,
Used to be
please
bad.
offer the like
No.
button a free session of acupuncture, but as soon as they're lying down, go ahead and administer a full-body allergy test. Also, please subscribe
I'm
to our
okay.
channel and turn on all notifications
don't like
so you don't miss any of our weekly
acupuncture.
uploads. Alright, let's get into
True.
today's story.
All right, are you ready for this? Because I am so not ready for this. Kind of scared actually.
I'm just learning how to edit like that. Closing screen.
Oh, I know. That's a good one.
In Nigeria, motorcycle taxi drivers are called Okadas, and in Ibadan, which is one of Nigeria's biggest cities, home to 3.5 million people, there are a lot of Okadas. However, despite their massive numbers, these Ibadan Okadas are actually a fairly tight-knit community made up primarily of young men. And so, in early 2014, when 2 of these Okadas went missing, the community immediately found out about it and was really concerned. And when the police did not appear to be doing much to actually go out and find these 2 guys, the community of Okadas decided to launch a search of their own.
It always starts this way, where the cop's not doing enough. This happens in every story.
Yeah, I don't get it. Kind of like it's just
Expected
that's
this.
how everything always ends in disaster.
Yeah.
I mean,
Basically, as they went about their day, driving around the city, dropping fares off, all of these Okadas would be going down side streets and looking in back alleys and checking all over the city for their missing members. But despite their best efforts, they never could find them. Then, on March 22nd of that year, a 3rd Ibadan Okada vanished. He was a young man named Lanre Sadiku, and unlike the other 2 riders who went missing while they were at home, Lanre went missing while he was working. Lanre was part of a group of Okadas within the city who all kind of met up on the same city street, and that's where they stayed throughout the course of their day, trying to wave down fares as they came up. And so everyone in that meetup point all knew each other, and so they all knew Lanre. And on the day he went missing, they recalled seeing him driving away from this meetup point with 2 passengers on the back of his bike. Now, typically, the rides these Okadas would offer to their passengers were very short. They're only driving them just around the city. And so it was very quickly noticed noticed that Lanre had left and after several hours had still not come back yet. When it was noticed by the other Okadas, they began talking about it and someone said, give him a call, make sure he's okay. And so they called his cell phone and Lanre did not pick up, which was highly unusual, not just for Lanre, but amongst the other Okadas. They always had their phones on because they're looking for new customers and customers could be calling them. And so their cell phone is a vital part of their work. And so his phone is off. They don't really know what to make of that. And then out of nowhere, Lanre actually calls this group of riders. However, he was calling them on his second cell phone. Lanre would keep a work phone and a personal phone. So he was calling them on his personal phone. And so when this other Okada answered the phone and heard Lanre's voice, he put the phone on speaker so the others who were concerned could hear what was going on. And what they heard was Lanre, totally hysterical, screaming into the phone that he needed help. He said that he and 8 other people he was with, who he didn't even know, had been kidnapped, and their kidnappers had brought them to this underground prison cell. They couldn't see anything, but they could hear people walking above them. Lanre also explained that when they had been kidnapped, the captors had taken all of their belongings, but they hadn't recognized that Lanre had this secondary cell phone, which is why he was calling from it. And so in between Lanre's frantic descriptions of what was going on and what had happened to him, these Okadas that received this call, they can hear in the background these other 8 people that are with Lanre in this underground cell screaming out as loud as they can, probably to get the attention of someone, anyone who was above ground who might be able to come down and save them. And so these Okada riders who are getting this call from Lanre, they're horrified. And
I wonder how, like, I wonder if they can actually be heard from above ground, like how, what's the word, like heavy are the walls or how thick are the walls? Like, can they be heard through them? I'm wondering.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure, which is kind of interesting because I feel like, well, I mean, we can't really control the thickness of the wall, but that just sucks because sometimes with walls, you want them to be thick so not a lot of sound can penetrate. I don't know, but then it comes with a great cost because then if people can't hear you, like shouting, basically, if they're thick.
Yeah, I wonder if any of the kidnappers ever get trapped down there themselves, like karma. That'd be nice.
Oh, God, I know. Anyway, sorry.
But they'd probably know the way out because they're workers.
True.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're trying to calm Lanre down so he can explain where he is so they can go find him. And finally, Lanre, he does compose himself and he gives them really specific directions to this footpath that led into the Soka forest where he said he had been taken. The Soka forest was a very dense stretch.
Sorry to pause so much, but that would suck if I had to... Well, it would suck to get kidnapped, but if I had to, like, tell people, like, how to find me, like, the exact directions, I would be screwed. Like, they would not find me because I am terrible with directions. Yeah. I'd be like, so there was, like, a tree, and then I went, like, maybe left.
Yeah,
toward
so, like,
the tree.
sorry, I know.
Like, I guess I'm done for.
Yeah.
Stretch of wilderness right on the outskirts of Ibadan. Lanre would tell them that he had no idea where specifically in the Soka forest he was. However, he said, if you just keep walking on that path, eventually you'll hear us calling out from underground and you can come and save us. And so as the riders turned on their bikes and they got ready to head out and go rescue their friend, they told Lanre to stay on the line. Let us keep talking to you until we find you. But as they're telling him that, his phone abruptly cuts out. And then when they tried calling him back, his phone was off. About 40 Okadas from Lanre's meetup spot took off together and sped down city streets until they hit this major highway that would take them out of the city. And then once they were out of the city, they went down this other road that brought them right towards the Soka forest. And then as this road put them right up against the tree line on their left side of the Soka forest, they all began looking for the 2 burned out cars that Lanre had said marked the beginning of this footpath they were looking for. And so sure enough, they find these burned out cars, they park all their bikes off on the shoulder of the road, and they quickly realize that this really is a footpath only. There's no way they can get their motorcycles onto the path, not only because the burned out cars are blocking their way, but because the path itself is so overgrown with vegetation. I mean, they can barely see the path, let alone drive something through it. And so the men leave their bikes by the side of the road, and then unarmed, they walk past the burned out cars onto this path, and then because it was so narrow, they had to walk more or less in a single file line into the Soka forest. And so as these men are basically marching into the woods, they're not making any sound because, again, they're trying to listen for the sound of their friend and the other people that have been taken captive somewhere underground. And so they're silently marching through this forest when all of a sudden the guy at the front of the line thinks he hears something way up ahead. And so he holds his hand up to stop the line, and they all stop and they're trying to listen. And then all of a sudden, about 50 feet ahead of them through the trees, this man they didn't recognize suddenly jumped out from behind a tree. He yelled something at them, and then he raised his gun and began firing in their direction. The 40 Okadas immediately turn around and just sprint back down the path, right back out to the road. They hop on their bikes and they peel back out towards the city. When they finally get back to the meetup spot they had all originated from, they realized they can't just leave Lanre and the other people he was with out to dry. They have to go back and rescue them. They considered calling the police, but given the lackluster response to the other two missing Okadas, they realized they probably would have a higher chance of saving their friend and the others if they just went themselves. And so the 40 Okadas rounded up another 60 from other neighboring meetup spots, and this huge posse of over 100 men all hopped on their bikes and headed back towards that footpath that led into the forest. When they got there, they put their bikes on the side of the road, and this time, when they started walking down that path, they had guns, knives, bats, all sorts of weapons, and they were not trying to be quiet. They were actually yelling like these loud war cries to let the gunmen and any other gunmen in the woods know that
they were ready to fight. So I had to pause that to finish that sentence.
Let's get down. Sorry, I got that.
To defeat the Huns.
I'm just saying it's just funny because you're like, yeah, we're gonna like be so loud, and then we're gonna get to fight. Like, I just don't understand what the point of that is, because like, are you just trying to?
They want to announce their presence. You know, they want to know, like, fear us. Like, we're coming after.
Yeah, very bold, but I don't know, man. That's a little risky. You might get shot. You know.
Yeah, no, but of course, there's always risk. I can imagine them walking in like slow motion, like a movie montage with like their weapons, like, and the Eye of the Tiger playing, like, dun dun dun. dun.
In this case, a little bit less victorious because
okay,
it's a little dark.
Situation, yeah.
No, but yeah,
I understand.
there was a horde of angry people that were coming into the woods for a fight. And so as they're marching down this trail, kind of expecting to get shot at any point, it doesn't happen. Instead, after quite a while, they walk out of the thick forest into this huge opening. And right in the middle of this huge clearing is this fairly small river, but it's big enough that it would be very difficult to cross. However, they can see there's a bridge, this kind of crumbling old stone bridge that goes over this river. And then on the other side of the bridge, on the other side of the river, they can see there are two dilapidated buildings. The one that is closer to the bridge is this small black shack that has a window looking out towards them, and from their perspective, they're maybe 100 feet away from the shack. They can't tell if anybody's inside of this building. And then the other building was much bigger than the shack. It was this huge kind of broken down warehouse that had big tall cement walls, and then all around it was this huge chain link fence with barbed wire wrapped around the tops. And so this huge posse of Okadas, they come storming out of the forest and they run over to that bridge, which is the one way across. And as they get on the bridge, they're kind of scanning the two buildings. They're not seeing anybody. And then one of the men, they look down underneath the bridge and they actually see Lanre's motorcycle. It's lying on the banks of this river, kind of tucked up underneath the bridge as if someone had stolen it. And so everyone already knows Lanre is somewhere over here. We're going to go find him. And so the men, they get over the bridge, they go to that first building, that black shack, and they open up the door. It's a plywood door and there's no one inside, but the shack is literally stuffed full of hundreds and hundreds of articles of clothing and shoes. And so after kind of looking this over and not really sure what to make of it, the posse moved on from the black shack and made their way up to the fence right in front of this huge warehouse. And when they reach the fence, they're kind of expecting to be met with some sort of resistance. I mean, the last time they were out here, they got shot at. And so they begin yelling into the warehouse for anyone in there to show yourselves, come out here. But it was silent. And so one of the Okadas that was part of the posse had brought along bolt cutters as a weapon to use as a club if he needed to. But as it happened, he began to use the bolt cutters for their actual purpose, and he bent down and actually cut a huge hole in this fence so they could go in and explore this warehouse. And so after a large percentage of this posse had gotten inside the fence line, they began walking around this huge warehouse to try to find an entrance inside. And so as they're walking, the windows that lead into the this warehouse, they're too high up, so you can't actually see what's going on inside.
sketchy.
It's silent, there's a pretty bad smell, but they don't really know what to make of this.
Still rotting.
They walk around the
bet.
structure, and when they get to the very back, they find an entrance. All it is this big rusted piece of tin metal, like sheet metal, that's propped up against a gap in the walls of the warehouse. And so one of the Okadas grabs this piece of metal and he pushes it out of the way. And then as soon as he did that, a few other Okadas quickly stepped through the threshold into the warehouse, preparing themselves to have to fight potentially if there are gunmen or anybody else inside that might want to do them harm. But as soon as they see what is inside of this warehouse, they immediately lower their weapons and just stare in abject horror.
Why
is
doesn't
it
every home in
always
the
at
US
the,
have solar
like-
panels?
It's the worst
Simple and
time
read-
ever.
Oh my god! Like I
And it's not
get
about
it.
sunlight,
Jeez.
weather,
Mr.
or
Ballen
even
apparently
politics.
whatever.
According to the locals who lived actually in the forest relatively near where this warehouse was, they said there was actually another way to get to this particular area, to get to the warehouse. There was another path that was very rough, but it was big enough for one vehicle that came in from the other direction. Now, the locals said they didn't use this path at all. They didn't even know where it originated from. But they said for the last 10 years or more, they have seen one vehicle use this road all the time to get to the warehouse. And it was this black Jeep with black tinted out windows. And they said it would typically show up most nights of the week around 8 p.m. And they said it would just go down the road. It would make its way over to the warehouse area. And then around 9:30 p.m., they would hear or see the black Jeep leaving. Now, none of the locals knew who was driving this Jeep, although they knew it was a man. That was really all they knew. And they had no idea what this man did when he got over near the warehouse. However, for the last 10 years, every time this guy was over near the warehouse from 8 to 9:30 at night, they would typically hear screams coming from that part of the woods, coming
that's
from the
not
warehouse. And when the locals
Ugh, the sound effect.
I know.
I
I
didn't
know.
like that.
See, I mean, even though I can't really tell, those are pretty sure that's just like a sound, fake sound. Those aren't real.
It
But I'm
reminds
saying,
me
like,
of horror party shorts or whatever it's called, where they always put those like
oh god,
screams in
yeah.
there.
I don't know why some screams get me, but some. Well, I know some screams don't get me, but some screams like that. It depends on how they portray it, but it's pretty scary in a way. I mean, it's real. It's real. It sounds very real. Let's just say so.
brought their concerns to police, the police just kind of blew it off and didn't do anything about it and actually told the people, nah, don't worry about it.
That's
And so over the
fine.
years, the locals had kind of
Whatever.
just accepted that this man in his black Jeep and the screams coming from this warehouse were just a part of life. And so no one even reported it.
That kind of makes me
They're
laugh.
just having fun, some
Wow.
interesting
I'm sorry to say, but the police's
endeavors.
yeah, the police's ignorance. No offense, it just makes me laugh. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's just screams. It's just a normal part of life. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Sketchy warehouse. You know, there's only one person going through this path. You know, in 10 years,
I'm just thinking
tinted
about,
windows in his car.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking about now. This sounds really like it sounds kind of insensitive, but police were they might be like, oh, they're screaming. Oh, they're just having a good time. Like,
I mean, that's kind of what I was
sorry,
saying.
I'm just sorry. It's just funny because it's like, oh, you know, they have their own fun. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It anymore. Had the police followed up on the locals' concerns about this Jeep and the screams, they would have discovered that that warehouse was actually a storage facility for a very in-demand and very illegal product. And that man who drove that black Jeep, he would take this illegal product and he would bring it back with him in batches and he would sell it on the black market. When this posse of 100 plus Okadas pulled that metal door aside and they stepped into the warehouse, they were not met with any resistance. Anyone that had been there, any other gunmen or guards or anything like that, they had fled when they heard the sound of this massive posse whooping and yelling on their way in. And so as these Okadas are standing inside of the
guess it was
structure
effective.
surveying what's in front of them, the first thing they noticed is right in the middle of the structure on the ground is this cement slab. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet, and one corner of this slab was elevated slightly by some rocks that had been placed under it, kind of propping it up, pitching it on an angle. And then just off of the side of the lowest point of the slab was this wooden bowl that had dark stains inside of it that was positioned in such a way that if you put water on the slab, the water would drain off of that corner directly into this bowl. Basically, it was there to catch any runoff off from whatever was happening on this slab. Around this cement
Wait, was it blood? Was there like blood on it?
I'm just thinking either piss or blood.
Or puke?
Or yeah, it could be anything. Any sort of liquid.
Any liquid.
I mean, seriously, it could be anything. So
slab, all over the dirt floor, were bones, some with meat on them. And then beyond the bones and beyond the slab, all around the perimeter of the inside of this building, were extremely malnourished, catatonic people chained up to the walls. These people were the highly in-demand, highly illegal product. More specifically, their body parts were the product. In Nigeria, a stunning number of people believe that certain magic potions and charms will grant you wealth and success, and in some cases, infinite life. But the catch is, the herbalists who will perform the magical rituals and give these potions and charms to people that pay for them, they often require human body parts for them to work. And so human body part factories, like this warehouse in Soka Forest, were established in order to meet the high demand of people that needed these parts. And so the way it's believed it worked at the Soka Forest warehouse was the man in the black Jeep. He would get orders from people that wanted specific body parts for their magical potions and charms and whatever else they needed, and he would make a list of those parts, and then at 8 p.m. he would show up at the warehouse and he would communicate with the people that worked at that warehouse, and they would determine out of all the captives they had who had the parts they needed. And then after figuring out which captives were going to be used that night, they would go into the main section of the warehouse and one by one.
Certain events like losing health coverage or getting married qualify you for a special enrollment period. When that
One by one,
happens,
you've
say
lost
hello
your
to
health
Hello
coverage.
Medicare. Our easy-to-use website lets you compare your plan, provider, and cost options from a variety of carriers. Get started at hellomedicare.com.
You hear it.
How shrooms changed my life. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and I got honest with myself. Coffee often made me feel anxious and hectic. It felt like fuel for my distractions.
Yeah, why can't he sell shrooms?
They would unchain these
True.
people,
I mean, that would
they
be
would
better
drag them to the
Shrooms
center
would probably work for these potions. I mean, I don't know anything about witchcraft, but
yeah, should be. Wait, sorry, I'm gonna go back a
use
little bit.
drugs.
Yeah, shrooms. I mean, literally, you sell drugs. You don't sell body parts. I'm sorry, it's not gonna be trying to laugh.
Or at least wait till they like lived a full life and like died a natural death.
When he says
And then take their
yeah, when MrBallen just mentioned malnourished, like what did he say? Collab. What did he say? That C word. I don't know what he said, but malnourished people like stuck to the wall. I don't know what he meant. I can't picture it exactly. But does that just mean they were still alive?
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
still alive.
understand,
They're
like-
just starving to death. Malnourished means they're like almost.
So what does that have to do with their body parts though? Like why not just kill them?
Well,
I
he
just
probably
don't.
was like making them suffer, so that then they would die. I guess, and then he could take their body parts.
Okay, that's just such a weird. I don't even understand it, but all right.
I guess you don't need healthy body parts because otherwise you wouldn't be starving them to death. Because if you want a healthy body part,
I guess.
you know, they probably just need like old.
Which is
I don't
really
even wanna
weird.
think about it.
Yeah, let's not.
captives were going to be used that night. They would go into the main section of the warehouse, and one by one, they would unchain these people, they would drag them to the center of the room, and in full view of all the other captives, they would put them on the slab, known as the slaughtering slab, and they would hack off the required body parts, and they would bag them up, put them in coolers, and then the man with the black Jeep, he would take those parts and he would leave, and then the person who's just been butchered, if they were still alive and might have a chance of surviving, they'd just be brought back to the wall and chained up again. If they did not have a good chance of survival, then they'd be brought to the very back of the warehouse in the back rooms where they would be discarded. Now, the means of execution varied, but in the back rooms of this warehouse, they found a makeshift guillotine, which cuts off people's heads, and they also found a large crocodile that was chained up. And so it's likely that those were at least two of the methods used to discard of the people they could no longer harvest organs from. After the Okadas kind of broke out of their initial shock of what they were seeing inside of this warehouse, they went to
Wait, I'm still confused why they have to make them suffer to take the. Couldn't they just like? I'm not saying you should kill anyone. Like, don't take this the wrong way. But,
but it's like.
But couldn't they just like shoot him in the head, quick death, and then
something
take the
quick.
organs? Like, why does it have to be starving?
Yeah, no, it's not
To
even,
death.
and it's according to MrBallen,
And,
it's
like-
not just starvation. It's you.
I guess they're trying to actually torture them because they're sick and twisted.
Yeah. No. What did he say? He just said he basically said if you weren't still weren't dead with the amputation of limbs or whatever body parts, you would be stuck to the wall or something. I don't know. What he
chained
said.
to the wall.
Yeah. So basically, you would be stuck there. You
And
die
you probably,
slowly.
well, or you'd go through the process again. They'd be like, "Oh, you're still alive. Okay, let's get another body part from you."
Right, or then they just said sent to a room with the guillotine or the crocodile. Oh god, I can't even use the imagination. Like I can't imagine.
So,
all that
what
stuff.
state do the body parts need to be in? Like, this is
Apparently terrible.
I don't understand why they. Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not.
that's
I'm not-
fine.
Don't kill anyone. Guys.
Around and began freeing people that were still chained up to the walls. And in total, there were 23 people that were still barely alive, still inside of this
God.
warehouse, but none of them were Lanre Sadiku. And then after checking all of the dead bodies and body parts that were inside of the warehouse, and then also right outside, where there were a number of shallow mass graves, they couldn't find Lanre amongst them either. And so this huge posse began looking all over the property for an entrance to this underground prison that Lanre had described being in. But they couldn't find it, and so eventually this posse made their way back over to the survivors who were being tended to by locals that had come over, and they asked the survivors, are you aware of any underground prison cells somewhere around here where other people were being held? But the survivors either didn't know or just were unable to speak anymore. And so later that day, when the police did come out, because word got out about this huge find out in this forest, the posse went to the police and begged them to please begin digging up this entire property. We need to find the entrance to this underground prison cell. Lanre and 8 others, and who knows how many others beyond them, are trapped underground in these cells, and we gotta get to them. But the police just kind of refused and immediately just demolished the warehouse. And then after kind of cordoning off that area for a couple of days, the police basically just left and stopped caring about it altogether. And so the Okada...
Y'all are so dumb.
Okay, no offense, but what else do they have to do exactly? Like, why is this not a priority for them?
Well, yeah, I
Like,
just don't
what
understand-
what do they have to do with their time besides what
Yeah,
the task at hand?
I'm
Especially
just-
if people's lives are at stake.
Yeah,
like,
I'm kind of confused. I'm trying to think if it's because they can't afford to. They demolished it because they can't afford to, like,
put it in
investigate or search.
or put in the
I
time and
don't-
effort, but
I
that
don't
doesn't
get
make any
that.
sense because this is like so many people are dying.
Yeah,
like, this
you're
is
the
the
police.
biggest case that you have to worry about right now. I'm assuming.
I'm trying to figure out why they demolished it, like for good intentions. I don't know. I don't know. It's just bonkers.
Once again came together as a community and would spend the next several weeks going back out to this forest and just manually began digging up all over this
the
entire
citizens are-
property in hopes of finding their friend and the rest
More
of these
dedicated
people that were
boys.
trapped underground. But they never did. And so we don't know what happened to Lanre and the other people who were trapped in that underground cell. We don't know what happened to the other 2 Okada riders who went missing right before Lanre did, although it's generally assumed they most likely were kidnapped as well and probably met a similar fate. We also have no idea how many people were butchered inside of the Soka Forest warehouse. However, given the massive amount of clothing and shoes inside of that black shack, it's believed the total number of victims is easily in the hundreds. No one has ever been officially held accountable for the atrocities that took place in the Soka Forest. However, a couple of days after the warehouse was discovered by the Okada posse, the posse was back digging, looking for Lanre, when they discovered there was this man who was there, who was kind of walking around, acting suspicious, and so the posse confronted him, and it would turn out this guy had several human tongues in his pockets, along with dozens and dozens of cell phone SIM cards. And so, assuming he was part of whatever happened there, the Okada posse proceeded to kill the man on sight.
Yeah.
Later on,
Oh wait,
they
is
just
that
straight
why?
up killed him.
Is that why earlier they were talking about how those people couldn't speak? Is because they cut their tongues out? Are they using their tongues for this function as well?
I mean, well, they did say body parts, so
yeah,
it could be,
anything.
but like I guess that was the. I feel like there has to be more than just that guy that was responsible for this, because that's a lot of like.
No, I know it's a lot of people being slaughtered and a lot of like
Yeah.
organization for just one person.
Yeah, I just feel like it's definitely
I feel
more than just one single person. I don't know. That's messed up. Yeah.
on, a woman who was a survivor from the warehouse would tell reporters how she got kidnapped. She said she lived in Ibadan, she was well educated, she had a good family, she was just sitting outside of her house when all of a sudden this van pulled up in front of her, and these very official looking men were inside of this van, and they got out and they told her, you're under arrest, you got to come with us to the police station. And the woman was so confused, but the men were very professional and seemed very convincing, and so she got inside the van, they shut the door, and they drove off. And very quickly, once she was inside of the van and couldn't go anywhere, she realized they were not police. She had been kidnapped. And within the hour, she, along with several other people who had probably been kidnapped in the same way, were stripping their clothes off right outside of that black shack on the other side of the river. And they were told to put their clothes and belongings inside of the shack while they were being held at gunpoint. And then once they were naked, they were promptly marched into that warehouse where virtually everyone...
Okay, so what I don't get is, like, I feel like, so, definitely not blaming victims here, obviously, like, they didn't know, it was, like, they thought they were actual cops, so, like, I get that, but, isn't there, like, aren't you, like, legally allowed to ask cops, like, what are you arresting me for?
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, that's
like,
part
can't you be like, hey, like, what am I in trouble for? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, there has to be a reasonable, I don't know exactly which one it is, but reasonable suspicion. Because you can't just be like, oh yeah, we're gonna arrest you for whatever. You have to be like, oh, what am I being suspected for? It's kind of like, I don't know exactly which one that is.
Or like if they won't need a warrant. I mean, it's not like they're going in your house, but
yeah. Well, it's probable cause or something. I think that's basically. So no, but that's.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely not blaming them because like obviously they didn't know it was like an intense situation. Like they just assumed that they were being arrested, and they probably thought that they would explain to them later on, or like when they got to the station, because you never think that you should not trust the cops. Like you always assume that if people say that they're a cop, that means they're telling the truth because
apparently the cops in this town are very not even helpful.
Well, yeah, but, I mean these weren't even real cops. Yeah, so it's different. But yeah, definitely not blaming them. I'm not trying to say that, but I just wanted to make sure that was a thing.
Yeah, no,
but yeah.
Around her would be butchered and killed. So that's going to do it, guys. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, please...
MrBallen, another... Well, this one was pretty hard.
Don't... Okay.
What?
No, I don't know. What were you going to say? Like, how are you going to finish that sentence?
No, I was just saying MrBallen, another... great storytelling video, but very dark,
like,
and
great storytelling abilities.
For sure.
Bad story.
Yeah, it just really shows how dark our world is, and people will just. This is why you should go into the world thinking like, you know what, I want to be optimistic, but also this world is very dark.
But also be careful about who you interact with. Don't be so trusting right off the bat because you never know.
Well, that's the thing about people can be very, like he said, those cops were convinced of people who kidnapped those people. Very convincing. So that's just shocking because people will take advantage and manipulate people in all sorts of ways, and that's just crazy.
It reminds me of when people like get in like taxis and cabs and stuff, or Ubers or whatever, and they'll be like pretend that they're the person's ride, and they get in and then they get kidnapped because this isn't their actual Uber. That kind of reminds me of that situation. Like you blindly trust because it's a situation you think that you should be able to trust in, but then you realize, oh, I'm kidnapped now. But I don't know. Like I always learned to avoid that with Ubers and stuff, is to always like go up and like tell them like, who are you here for? And then if they don't know your name, or they like make something up, or they say like, oh, I'm here for you, you're like, well, what's my name? And you always like make sure like to ask them what your name is, because otherwise they could just say that they're there for you and they can't prove it in any way.
True.
So.
Yeah. No, it's just crazy.
Not that it has, not the same situation, but it just reminded me of that. So.
No, yeah, it kind of, definitely modern times at least, but
yeah.
No, that was crazy because like just. I mean, obviously, of all the stuff that went on, but like it's a black market, basically illegal selling of.
Yeah. No, I mean, I knew it would be bad when the video title was called like Death Factory. I was I'm just kind of obviously I know what to expect. I had a general idea.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it's not even a factory. I mean, it's like I don't remember, but it's just like a warehouse.
It's basically a slaughterhouse. And that slab he was talking about was basically a giant cutting board, but for people.
Yeah, basically like that's crazy. That's nice. I don't expect that. No, but that was very graphic. And I know I'm kind of, at least for me, I'm a little desensitized because of all the horror and scary just things I've watched over the years, but I mean, still, that's pretty shocking. And this is real life stuff too. This
But
is
I'm
not
sure
just
if
a
like I
movie.
had never seen a single horror movie in my life and I sat down and watched this video, I'd be like not able to sleep for weeks.
Well, and also, this is all real. This is actually
true.
like in
So
our
it's even worse
yeah, it's
because
even worse.
it's
This is
real.
real. This is just real life stuff. But yeah, that was
This is real
crazy.
life.
Guys.
I always forget that this stuff is real because obviously like I guess we kind of live in a bubble where
Yeah, true.
we don't always we don't see stuff like this happen.
Yeah, we're very privileged at times, but you know.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so
yeah.
you just forget that this stuff happens.
I know the world's a dark place, man. Well, I hope you guys really enjoy that reaction. And make sure to subscribe,
There's
Mr.
a lot of
Ballen.
emails.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Make sure to subscribe, Mr. Ballen, and check out his videos if you haven't.
And his podcast. His podcast is cool.
Yes, I would probably need to check out his podcast too. I don't know if I can listen for a whole hour, but you know, his voice is very
ADHD, but it
depends. But you know, he's a great YouTuber and storyteller overall. So we might really much enjoy him, and hope to see you guys in the next reaction video of ours. And yeah, see you guys. Bye.
Peace.